So I'm back from Oman. I got myself a hat. Well, it's a Kumar actually, but got myself a hat. So why was I in Oman? It's a good question. It's not somewhere I'd think of going, off the top of my head. As it happens, my son works out there. He's got a 2-year contract working out there. And as I say, I wouldn't normally have thought of going there off the top of my head. Culturally, Oman's off the scale. In one of my previous videos, which I'll put a link to, I talk about the differences culturally between the French and the English. Well, if you want to see the culture differences between Europe and Oman, it's a chasm. And we'll have a look at that through this video. Before I went to Oman, and this was my second time, so my first time was the real culture shock. But before I went, I had a very prejudiced Western view of an Arab country, a Muslim country. My view, you'd walk down the street, you'd sneeze, they'd cut your hand off because you weren't looking in the right direction when you sneezed. This sort of strange perception we have of these countries. And to be honest, it couldn't have been further from the truth. I was expecting a somewhat hostile environment towards Westerners in their shorts and their strange ways, and I was completely wrong. The Omanis are the most friendly, welcoming people I think I've ever found anywhere. And so it was a real shock to me that my prejudiced view of an Arab country was so wrong. And it was so wrong. And we'll go into that through this video. Stick with us, there's some fun. I've had some amazing diving. I've been swimming with whale sharks, something I've always wanted to do. We've done a Via Ferrata climbing trail, some great food, some really interesting food, beautiful weather. Stick with us, we'll go through it. And maybe at the end of it you'll want to go to Oman too. Let's try and do Oman's history in about a minute. Oman is strategically very well placed for trading in the east and has always been a trading pillar with ports, dealing with traders throughout Africa and even right through to Europe. To be honest, 50 years ago even, there wasn't a whole lot in Oman. It was really many thousands of years of not a lot happening, apart from being invaded by Portugal, who built a lot of forts and obviously wanted to colonise Oman for the trading position. Things settled a bit when they saw off the Portuguese. There was then a number of invasions, mainly from Yemen in the south. The British helped them out. Difficult country to invade Oman because it's surrounded by very high mountains, something I hadn't considered. You think of desert, you don't think of high mountains, but actually it was a difficult place to invade. So it's had its fair share of turmoil. And then they discovered oil, which of course creates new turmoil. Everyone wants some of that money. And a lot of the East, when they discovered oil, they, for lack of a better term, they just blew the money on vulgar riches, gold this, gold that, gold everything. Oman was lucky because they had Sultan Qaboos, and he really invested wisely. He didn't spend all that money on vulgar things. Yes, he had a super yacht and he had plenty of good things for himself, don't get me wrong, but he invested heavily in Oman as a country. He built roads, he pretty much built Muscat. There was very little there 50, 60 years ago. My son's joke was, "You're the oldest thing here, Dad." Nice.
Wow, look at all these old inscriptions in Nizwa fort. I wonder how old they are. The inscriptions are carved 60 to 100 years ago. You're older than some of these inscriptions.
But anyway, Sultan Qaboos really built Oman. He was a great leader. He sort of got everybody together, got everybody working together, and they built infrastructure. They built universities, colleges, schools, hospitals, built the electric infrastructure, the water infrastructure, the road infrastructure. So everything's quite new. So the roads are in beautiful condition. None of them are particularly old. The whole place reminds me of Minecraft. If anyone else is old enough to remember the game Minecraft, where you sort of take a piece of land, you flatten it, and you say, this is where we're going to build a hospital, this is where we're going to build and that's how it feels, because it is so new. Sultan Qaboos ruled from 1970 through to 2020. Unfortunately, didn't quite make his 50th year, which is really a great shame, because actually the whole of Oman loved him. I mean, the day he died, Omanis were saying they were crying. They really did love this guy because he gave them a whole country, from oil, instead of just spunking that money on gold this and gold that and vulgarities like a lot of the East has done with its oil money. Sultan Qaboos funneled that money into useful things that were going to build the community. There's an interesting aside there. When they needed their electrical infrastructure, their water infrastructure, their roads, pretty much everything, they didn't have the skills to do it. So they had to buy in a lot of those skills. And that's why there's so many expats, not just because of the oil, but because they had to buy in all the skills to build all these infrastructure items within the last 50, 60 years. And so I've heard figures of 50% of Oman are not Omanis. So the Omanis are kind of used to having Westerners and other cultures and people amongst them. And that's probably helped with their friendly acceptance of our strange ways. And I cannot stress enough how friendly they are. Just unbelievably friendly. And it's not that false friendliness. It's a real, genuine, welcoming friendliness. Sadly, in 2020, Sultan Qaboos died. The whole country went into mourning. They now have Sultan bin Haytham. And he's got some big shoes to fill, because Sultan Qaboos really set a very high standard. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes on. Because of the oil, Oman is a very rich country. It's rich, but it's a strange combination of old that's suddenly been new. So suddenly you've got a new infrastructure on what was an old country with virtually no roads. I say new, within 50 years. And it's a strange feeling that, their broadband, fibre broadband, is far better than I've got in the UK. I mean, off the scale better, because it's new. They've just gone, here's the money, bang, we'll have fibre broadband. We want new roads, bang, they build them. There's no messing about because the money's there from the oil. And tax is quite different. They pay very little for their fuel. I think my son's car was £8 sterling to fill up. So fuel is cheap. Their taxes are low. Strange taxes, albeit strange taxes that we don't understand. But for the expats, it's pretty much a tax-free community, and that obviously attracts in the skills that they need. Again, most of those are working in petrochem or the oil industry more specifically, but quite a lot of them came in to build infrastructure, and that's why my son's there. He's in radio. They're building up radio stations, and that's what he's doing there. So what did I find to do there? Well, as it turns out, an awful lot. It's fantastic hiking. There's camping off into the desert in 4x4s. My son is in the desert now. We're not on, they've taken some big 4x4s and gone off into the desert to camp and hike. There's incredible mountain ranges to walk. There's fantastic hiking, distance hiking, hills, mountains, beaches, pretty much everything if you like the outdoors. For me, obviously the diving. If you saw my last video on getting ready to go diving, cover some of the diving. Oh my goodness, I've had some lifelong experiences this week with my diving. My son's got into paddle. It's a sort of somewhere between tennis, squash, almost like table tennis. You use a bat that hasn't got strings. I'll try and find some pictures of it. We had a game of paddle, hour and a half. That nearly killed me. I think my son was on a mission to wear me out and put me back on the plane absolutely broken. I have a nasty feeling that actually he was more worn out than I was at the end of it, which is a good thing for us oldies. And we played paddle for an hour and a half in the evening. It was hot. Yes, it's still hot in the evening. We had 30 degrees pretty consistently throughout the week during the day, down to 22 degrees at night, which is absolutely perfect weather. I put off going in August because the weather can be 50 degrees and 99% humidity. You literally walk out your house and before you can even get in your air-conditioned car, you're dripping wet. And that's not my idea of a good time. Let's get on to the diving, because that's one of the key things I'd loved out there. The diving's good. I mean, you can get in a boat pretty much off the coast of any part of Oman and have good diving. Away from Muscat, which is where we were based, there's the Dominiat Islands, which are islands about 45 minutes in a decent fast boat from Muscat Harbour. And that is, well, it's the Caribbean of Oman. And the diving there was spectacular. We went on a friend's boat following the dive boat out to the Dominiat Islands. We were probably 35 minutes into our 45-minute journey and we suddenly noticed the dive boat slowing right down. And when we looked in the water, we could see the fins of the whale sharks going through the deep part of the sea there. Just spectacular. We literally just grabbed Finn's mask, just threw ourselves over the side. Whale sharks, harmless to us, but vast, and they do look shark-like. When you see these things in the water, you think, I'm not jumping in with them, is your natural feeling. Anyway, we all jumped in. I left my camera behind. My Insta360 with its dive case takes quite a bit of setting up. You've got to get it all right. I just needed to get in with them. Thankfully, one of the other guys had a camera and we got some pictures of the whale sharks. It was an absolutely spectacular moment and a lifetime memory from this trip. At the Dominiat Islands, we had some beautiful diving. We saw lots of things, loads and loads of turtles. We had turtles around us pretty much all the time. We had one dive, we were looking around for everything. We came up, as you come up diving, you're looking up. And we looked up, huge turtle right above us, looking at it as if to say, where the hell are they coming from? What are all these bubbles? And dive onto a wreck with a large honeycomb eel that was perfectly friendly. I mean, I put the camera right up to this eel, no snapping at it or anything. Yeah, they're used to divers. It looks quite terrifying if you're not a diver, but if you're used to this sort of wildlife, then you'll understand that these eels actually become quite tame. A lot of the divers actually take food down for them. They learn to recognise each diver. So we had that. We had a dive on the wreck. We held an Oman flag up on the wreck because I was out there for Oman Day, their national day. I'll cover that in a minute. But generally the diving was fantastic. And just having some time to dive with my son. It's a very special moment, father and son diving together. Just lovely, just having some time diving with him. My son booked for us to do a via Ferrata climb at Anantara. I'm going to have to look the mountain up, so excuse me a minute. I've got it on the screen. Al Jabal Al Akhdar. I probably pronounced that horribly wrong. I probably massacred its name. Anyway, they had beginner intermediate and extreme. We chose the intermediate. I'm glad we did. It was just right. It was enough to scare the pants off us, but not so much that we sort of froze and sort of panicked and stuck to the rock. We had some serious exposure with some big drops. Took about an hour and a half to do the Via Ferrata. You are, of course, hooked onto a rope. If you fell, yes, it would scare the pants off you, and yes, it would hurt because you'd bang into the rock, but actually you wouldn't fall. But telling your brain that when you're going along a little ridge with thousands of feet below you, it's a real I don't think I can use the term mind fuck. It's real mind over matter. You have to tell your mind that you're not going to fall off this ridge.
Amazing, amazing. That's too fast. Well done.
I think that's a good trick, hooking your arm on the inside of the rope as well.
It helps move the...
Amazing, amazing.
I've landed on the wrong foot.
If not, you can go down. Yeah, and you come up again.
Yeah.
Well done. There is a good grip for hands, yes. Well done. As I say that all the time, make blanks.
Yeah.
And you made it. Yeah. 2 hands and lean back. This is a nice photo. Look at me.
It had a couple of zip lines over some quite exposed high valleys and things.
Well done. 1 hand out. Nice photo. Hold the black rope. Anyone black rope? Yes. Nice one. Amazing. Well done. Well done. That's it. Okay. I'll hold this one anyway.
Very, very exciting, and just a really good start to the day. As I say, only an hour and a half. That's about as much adrenaline as I could manage, about an hour and a half's worth. And then on the way back, we stopped in a sort of cafe in the middle of nowhere and had a traditional Omani breakfast, sat in this beautiful hot weather. So just a really nice day out. And if you've ever been tempted by one of those Via Ferrata high exposure climbs, message, put something in the comments, and I'll cover it in a bit more detail. It's the first time I've done one of those. I've done ridge walking and scrambling and things. I've never done climbing. This was a little bit more technical. You know, you had to have a harness, you had to have the right trolley for the zip line, you had to, you know, move between sections and things. And it was quite fun. Well, no, it was a huge amount of fun, huge adrenaline rush, and just a nice morning out. One of our days was at Nizwa Fort. It was a fort, huge fort built in Nizwa, which used to be the capital of Oman before Muscat became the capital. So it's a large town. And the fort was interesting. It was interesting to see old Oman. Bit too Disneyfied for me, if I'm honest. Interesting to look around, but I kind of felt it was just a bit too... it was restored just a bit too well, really, for my liking, and it felt just a bit Disney, but interesting to see nonetheless. And on the way back from Nizwa, we almost passed the Oman Across Ages Museum, a brand new modern museum built by Sultan Qaboos. Sadly, he died. He did lay the foundation stone, but sadly died before it was finished. Absolutely breathtaking modern design museum with the history of Oman, beautiful exhibits. and really quite a highlight. I'm not a great one for museums. I tend to avoid the tourist places. And when my son said to me, "Oh, I really want to go and see this museum, I've heard fantastic things about it," I was sort of lukewarm, and I said, yeah, that would be great. But I got there and it's absolutely amazing. The multimedia systems, the exhibits, absolutely incredible. And this building, this massive museum, just incredible. So a good day out, but I understand if you do it at the weekends it can be crazy. By the way, in Oman the weekend is Friday and Saturday. It's taken me a little while to get the hang of that. I still expect my son to be working on a Friday, and of course it's weekend Friday and Saturday. So, as I say, culturally chasms away from us. So I'm going to cover some random stuff here. I just didn't know where else to put these things. So, as I get more and more random at the end of each of my videos, you may have noticed a pattern emerging here. I just didn't know where else to put these. So just things I wanted to cover while I was out there. They had their National Day, Oman Day, 18th of November every year. And it just shows how proud they are of their country. The whole place went mad. Muscat went absolutely mad. It was cars just going up and down, bipping the horn, people hanging out the windows, the sunroofs, kids out the sunroofs. Spray, what's it called? Crazy string. I can't remember what it's called, but spray string, water guns. They just went mad for the whole evening, and the roads were jammed. It took us, I think it took us 2.5 hours to do less than 5 kilometres, but just great to watch. People running between the cars. Just great, and it just shows their pride in their country, and in a country that we see as being very reserved. It's just fun to see them just having so much fun. The food wouldn't normally be something I'd think of. You think of Italian food and French food and, various different countries with all their amazing foods. And Oman wouldn't pop into my head for one of those. And it seems to be the picture of Oman, actually. It wouldn't come into my head for a lot of these things that we were doing and really enjoying, and actually were very, very good. And so the food, I was thinking, well, we'll eat. Honestly, the food was fantastic. I think if you were a vegetarian, you'd struggle out there. And I think it's very much a meat-based. It's obviously a traditional type diet. I'm a bit of a fan of a kebab or a shawarma, and obviously that was the place. We had some fantastic shawarmas. We went to Old Turkish, fantastic shawarma, and a buzzing sort of restaurant. One of the things you have to get used to in Oman is the bipping of horns. Everybody pulls up in their car, bips the horn, and gets service to their car. It's a bit like America in that way. So you do have to get used to that sort of busyness and the traffic and the cars, and Old Turkish was a bit like that, but a fantastic shawarma. And it was, I think, the first evening that I was there, so it was just nice to catch up with my son. We also had an evening with Muscat. Muscat is kind of, again, as a tourist, you'd probably look at these sort of sheds and like a shanty town and say, well, I'm not going there. You pull up in your car, you sit at a table with a plastic chair, and they do barbecue type food. Again, wonderful, beautiful meat, barbecued with a hot spicy sauce and some bread. And again, it's just sitting there, especially with my son, just sitting chatting in beautiful weather. Again, special moment really, but as a tourist I'd look at these places and I wouldn't even think of going there. And I guess that's the advantage I've got with my son out there now. He's been there nearly a year now, and he can show me the things that as a tourist I probably wouldn't even go and I wouldn't even think about, let alone consider going and doing. He also took me for a Shiwa, which is a traditional Omani meal. It's meat that would be cooked underground in a bag, slowly, really slowly. So it's very tender meat. It was lovely meat, but they put a plate down, a wide plate in the middle of the table, and you eat it with your hand. Obviously your right hand. If you know anything about Oman, you'll realise you never eat with your left hand, you only eat with your right hand, your clean hand. But you eat with your hand, and putting your hand into a plate of rice with some sauces and meat, and then you squeeze it and then eat it. I really struggled with that. This was a traditional Omani restaurant that some of his Omani friends had introduced him to, because they're obviously showing him their culture. And I know when they served it up, they were all quietly looking around the corner to see if we knew what to do with it. I'm glad to say we did. But I have to say I struggled with eating with my hand. It was just felt wrong. But obviously you do it, you enjoy it. And I'll put some pictures in. I know some of the pictures he's got of me, you know, I'm sort of looking very dubious. Or your choice, sit at the table or sit on this carpeted floor. So it was very traditional, just nice to see. But as I say, I had a problem getting my head around that one. And then one of my favourites, and something I've never managed to find anywhere else, karak chai or karak tea. I just can't describe it. It's somewhere between a tea with an Ovaltine type taste, a sort of, I don't know, a malty sort of taste, and a spicy taste. I think if I took a tea, a weak coffee and an Ovaltine and mixed it together, that's about as close as I could get. And it became a bit of a tradition last time I was out there. And again, I was worried. I hadn't seen my son in his new home for quite a few months. I was a bit worried about what I was going to find, and to find that he'd got this amazing life. And we would go out places, and then on the way home we'd pull up at this place that did karak chai or karak tea, and we'd get these little cups of this lovely karak and just sit in the car and chat and drink. And that became a special thing for me, really, a special time. So I was just looking forward to it, and it didn't disappoint. I really enjoyed it. I just wish I could find somewhere where I could get it in the UK. I'm sure you can buy tea bags that emulate it, but as I understand, there's quite a ritual in making the karak, and the tea bag's not going to replace that. So it's probably never going to taste the same. And it's probably a little bit like when you go somewhere in France, you buy their cheap wine. When you're there, it tastes wonderful because it's not actually the wine, it's the environment, it's who you're with, it's everything else. It's not really the wine. You bring it back to the UK, you take one sip and you think, why did I drink this shit? And I suspect karak would be a bit the same. You know, even if you took an identical karak to what I was getting in Oman and I drank it in the UK, probably wouldn't be the same, because actually it's sitting chatting with my son, chatting in the car in this lovely heat. It's not just the cup of tea. It wouldn't be complete without covering the driving out there. My son gets so frustrated. He gets really angry with it, and it's just wrong because their driving is very strange. So part of their culture is that you don't fall out with anyone. It's illegal to make a rude sign. You make a rude sign at another driver, you can be arrested for it, and probably will be arrested for it too. And it's just this thing that everyone's your brother. Everyone lets everybody in. When you're queuing up to get into the car park, somebody comes down the outside and just pushes in and nobody complains. It's a very weird environment. I can't say they're good drivers, but they are laid back and relaxed. There's no arguments. It's all very chilled. And I quite like that. As I say, it winds my son up that they don't indicate, they just change lanes. They don't filter in. You get to a filter road and they just stop. We were on the on the expressway. I was about to say interstate. On the expressway with their equivalent of a motorway. There's a dumper truck going up the other way because he only needs to go to that junction. Why go all the way round? And nobody cares, you know. So it's a bit of a strange environment. It is difficult driving. I did drive. I didn't drive this time, but I did drive last time I was out there. And I think really all you can do is just sit back and watch, you know. But as I say, my son just gets mad, and that's probably not going to help. Somebody he used to work with said to him, Oman's like a wave. You can either ride it or you can fight it. But if you fight it, it will drown you. And that's really how their driving is. Just go with that dreadful driving and just accept, you know, there's no lane control. I joke that putting paint on the road is just a waste of paint. You know, lines on the road don't mean a thing. And my son jokes it's a bit like go-karting. You can do anything you like so long as you don't bump into each other. And that's kind of how it feels. And incredibly, there don't seem to be many accidents. But it is just that sort of... it's a very non-aggressive chaos. So look, you've got to reduce speed now, and that's why, look, they've drawn a picture of all the piled up traffic. So, if like me, you had never considered Oman, I knew Oman existed, I would never have thought, let's go on holiday to Oman, or let's look at Oman for a holiday. Maybe you'd like to rethink that. It's culturally, it's a huge shock. I mean, it's a huge shock. It's a chasm away from Europe, but that's quite nice. And they are such welcoming people. If a car breaks down at the side of the road, you get 5 other people stop and help them. Oh yeah, my brother can help you with that. Rings his brother comes down and he'll fix that, you know. They all help each other. I don't know if that's because in the desert, you know, breaking down is life-threatening, but I just feel that that's them. They just seem to be so welcoming and so friendly, genuinely friendly, not this horrible American, hey, missing you already. Oh, shut up. I'm sorry, I'm just going to offend all my American viewers. I think I've got mostly American viewers at the moment, but you know what I mean. When I'm in America, that sort of let's call it commercial friendliness. You know, we're friendly to you because you're a customer. It's not like that. It's a genuine warmth, friendliness. And you get that, you pick it up straight away. And it's lovely. And I've really, really enjoyed it. Here's an interesting thought. If you've watched any of my previous videos about the UK government, you'll know how disappointed I am with them at the moment, how totally ineffective they are. They're lying, stealing. It's really quite a shocking situation. And to look at the relationship of a sultan to the country, so Sultan Qaboos, yes, he had plenty of money. There was no arguing that he took a lot of money for himself too, but he invested so well in the country. He got stuff done. And that's something that governments don't seem to be able to do anymore. Certainly looking at the British government, I look at them discussing everything, stabbing each other in the back and fighting like squabbling children, trying to score points over each other rather than getting stuff done. And when you look at what Sultan Qaboos has done for Oman in a mere 50, 60 years, it's quite remarkable. And to be fair, that was his thing. When he came into power, he said, my father just wasn't getting stuff done. I'm going to get stuff done. And literally within days, he had stuff being put in place. And I'm trying to say, I've forgotten what it was we saw at the museum. And it said, you know, 2 days after coming into power, I think it was national radio, I think it was, in place. 2 days after coming into power. So having that one person with a huge focus and the ability to pull everybody together, I would say is preferable to what we've got in the UK at the moment, where we have politicians. They are totally ineffective. Everything they touch, they break, stabbing each other in the back and fighting like children. It's Honestly, it's pathetic. And I have to say, looking at Oman, I'd rather have a sultanate. Of course, it comes down to who you get. I mean, it's like a dictatorship in a way. It comes down to who you get. But certainly Oman, with Sultan Qaboos, he turned the place round. There's no doubt about it. And I can tell you, every Omani knows that. You know, they know that he put them on the map. I've tried to zip through this at a fairly decent pace. This had the potential to run for an hour while I bored you with my holiday pictures, so I've tried to zip through it a bit. If there's anything that's caught your imagination, put it in the comments. I'm quite happy to go into more detail. Might do a bit more on the Via Ferrata, might do a bit more on the diving at some point, but if there's anything that catches your interest, put it in the comments. I'd love to go into it in a bit more detail. What's up next? I haven't got a clue. I've been away for a week. I've come back pretty exhausted from a decently long flight, and I haven't even got on to, you know, my focus was purely on get out my Oman experience. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, so can't give you any clues, but we'll see where it goes. I've got to say a huge thank you. Yet again, I seem to be saying a huge thank you at the end of every video. While I was in Oman, somebody commented, somebody on TikTok who's gone viral has posted something about your channel. You know, it's going to start taking off. Oh my goodness, it did. Hundreds of subscribers per day. I'm nearly up to 1,000 subscribers, which was kind of my target for saying, yeah, the channel's landed. I know that's nothing. There are people with millions of followers, but for me, I said when I get to 1,000, I can consider that I've got a channel. Up till then, it's just something I'm doing to amuse myself and hopefully you as well. We're nearly at 1,000 followers, so thank you everybody who's followed and whoever posted it on TikTok. I've got no idea who it was, and if anyone knows, please put it in the comments. I'd love to thank them, because my YouTube channel has just gone like that, and it's lovely. So a big thank you to all of you that have followed. I hope I don't disappoint. It will give me a bit more impetus to keep this interesting and fun. I did get a comment about my penis plant, but I think that's on the way out now. There's a new one coming. We'll get a bit more mileage out of that yet. While I was out there, I bought myself a kumar. A kumar is their national dress. I know I look a tit in it, but you know, I have to take the mickey out of everybody. Every white guy who goes out to Oman buys himself a dish dash and kumar and thinks he looks like an Omani. You know, he doesn't. But I just felt, I think it was £4, even though it's a traditional one, and I just love it. It's just great. Just sums up Oman. It's my memory from Oman.
Oh yeah, baby.
Oh my goodness, I don't think I've got any outtakes today. Oh God, I don't think I'm getting good at this. No, I'm definitely not getting good at this.